whatever I was into at the time, like it really became my identity. I remember one day at practice, my football coach told me, he told me that I was born to play football. And I heard that and promptly quit. Like, I'm just that was like the kiss of death. Only one thing worth doing is worth overdoing, and that's my relationship with God. I mean, again, I would never have admitted to this, but in reality, music probably was my God. My experience with God and my relationship with God is nothing is ever like a smack over the head. Ever. And I mean the good things. I mean the good, the bad, and the ugly. We all had friends in college who would go away for a year to find themselves. I never understood that. As a matter of fact, I thought it was BS. Like, people would say, I'm like, you're just looking for an excuse to go to Europe for a year. Like, I don't blame you. Like, now's the time to do it. But don't tell me it's some, like, philosophical, deep-seated, like, I'm finding myself. Like, whatever. Well, here I am almost 50, and I realize maybe there's some merit to that.
Welcome back to the Barn again. My name is Jonathan Little.
And I'm Mike Sizz.
And we are here to share the extraordinary stories of ordinary people with you. And today our guest is Thad Aerts.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
So Thad is a part of our Friday morning coffee group, and I've been friends with Thad for several years, 8 or 9 years now. And he's just a dynamic person. And it kind of goes with the reason that we started this podcast is I think a lot of times we walk past people and we don't think about the depth of their lives. And I know because I see Thad in adoration at a chapel, but if I didn't know him and I saw him behind the bar serving beer, I would just think some schmo serving beer. But I know that both of those sides of that exist, and I think that's really cool. So I want to share that with people that, like, the ordinary people we pass every day have some pretty dynamic stories to share, and I think you do. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from?
I've lived in Lincoln, around Lincoln my whole life. Married for 28 years, 27 years now. 5 kids, 2 grandkids. Went to school in Lincoln, went to the University of Nebraska. I'm just a passion-driven person. Kind of the things that I get into typically tend to define me, which we can maybe talk about later, but when I get into something, I kind of dive in head first and go crazy with it.
What's an example of something you dive headlong into?
It really started when I was probably like 2nd or 3rd grade, and it started when I was 5, and I heard Joan Jett's "I Love Rock and Roll" for the first time in my mom's car, and I was like, "What is that?" And so, like, the underlying, no pun intended, soundtrack to my life has been music, and no matter what I get into, that music's always a component of it. But shortly after that, I discovered Michael Jackson, and I was the little white kid that went to a Catholic school that dressed just like Michael Jackson every single day.
Glove.
The glove. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was in a Pepsi commercial where his hair caught on fire.
Yeah.
And so he had this little piece in front of his hair that like went down and looked weird. I would get up early in the morning to make my hair look like,
Did you gel it?
Oh, yeah, like you should have invested in hairspray because I was using a lot of it. And I had the little things that came down. Then it was breakdancing, so I dressed like a breakdancer.
Did you breakdance?
Yes.
The Vans? Do you have the Vans with the checkered Vans?
That came with skateboarding.
Okay.
So that was later, which was the next thing. I discovered skateboarding, and that really consumed me. I mean, I'm still into it to this day. I'm less of a participant and more of just like an observer, but from June 5th grade through my senior of high school, it was just that's all I cared about. But then with that came punk rock music, and so I got introduced to that. And then it became bicycles, and then it was snowboarding, and then it was more recently dirt bikes. And it's just like whatever I get into, craft beer, I can't help myself but just want to like immerse myself in it. And I find that it's interesting, like when I first do get into something. So this most recent round of like getting into dirt bikes, the first 6 months or so, I'm just so frustrated because I just want to know all the things that is just common knowledge to everybody else that is a participant in that thing. And so I'm just like trying to absorb as much information as I possibly can, because I just, it's a good thing and it's a horrible thing all at the same time, because I can't, One of my friends asked Amy at one point, does Thad ever do anything casually? And the answer is typically no.
You're all in.
And I don't, and like that could be like, sound like I'm trying to sell myself on something. And it sometimes it's just like, man, I wish I wasn't late. Like, why do I have to be that way, you know? But yeah, it's interesting. I played organized sports up until like about third grade, just with the Y, you know, baseball, soccer, football. And I remember playing flag football, and I already knew like that probably wasn't what I wanted to do. But I remember one day at practice, my football coach told me, he told me that I was born to play football. And I heard that and promptly quit. Like, I'm just that was like the kiss of death. Like, I don't want to have, okay, if that's where this is going, then I already had my sights set on I think it's just more like individual things. Another thing that I really got into, you can't tell now, but at one point really got really into running. And for about 10 years was really into running. I was way skinnier than I am now, and got fairly good at it just because I did it a lot. Again, because I couldn't just half-ass it. You know, I was going to do it, you know, over the top. And I often wondered, I was like, you know, if I would have done this in high school, like what would have that become? You know what I mean? But then,
because you told me before, like you would run 10 plus miles, like without batting an eye.
Yeah, there were weeks that I would run like 70 or 80 miles, like within the week. And like,
Jeez.
yeah, it was ridiculous though. I mean,
I run now, but if I run 50 in a month, I'm lucky.
Yeah. I was younger too. And it was ridiculous because I was doing that. And then I was like going to the gym 3 times a week to like lift weights. And I was riding my bike a lot. And, you know, I did lose a lot of weight, and people would ask me, they're like, well, you know, you must feel so much better. Like, actually, no, I don't. Like, my body was in pain all the time because I couldn't not do it. You know, it's like you hear about runners, like you take the week off or the day off and they just can't do it. That's what it was. It was like, I can't take the day off because then I'm just going to slip back. And like, I mean, then that's the problem with that mentality is you can't, it's like hard to keep things in check. You know what I mean?
And you owe it all to Joan Jett, it sounds like.
Yeah, through the years, I've sang I love rock and roll to I love running, I love skateboarding.
I love enter thing. Yeah. So I noticed that the first time we went on a bike ride, you texted me and said, do you want to go on a mountain bike ride? So I got a bike, and I came over to your house, and you opened the garage, and there was like 7 bikes. And I'm like, we only have 4 kids, so... Five. Sorry, yeah, 5. 5 kids. What are all the bikes for? And he's like, no, those are my bikes. The kids' bikes are over there. I'm like, oh, okay. Which one are you riding? I don't know. Let me pick.
Yeah, that goes with it. You know, it's just, yeah, it's good and bad. That, you know, it's like, I don't regret those experiences at all. But you do get to a point where you sort of, and I think everybody does that. That's just life, right? That's the progression of life, is in evaluating your behavior and the things that you do. But you do get to a point where you kind of look at it and you're just like, you know, the age old thing that people say, I think I have found is totally 100% true. When it comes to personal possessions, whatever they may be, if you're not careful, you don't own them, they own you. And that I have learned that, like, even with bicycles, it's like, you know, anyone who gets into bikes, that's the route you take. You start accumulating all these bikes because you've got these different ones for different things, for different purposes. And you just get to a point where like you're always fixing something, you're always replacing something, and you're like, it's not, at some point you spend more time maintaining these things than you do enjoying them. You know, it's like the extreme of that is like people who own a pool or like an RV. It's like your happiest day is when you get it, and your second happiest day is when you get rid of it. And you learn, just know somebody that has those things, because you spend more time and energy maintaining them than actually using them. And in like different capacities, I've just learned that with things. I'm sure my wife is going to watch this and just laugh when she hears me say that. And like, okay, well then get rid of all your records and get rid of your bikes and get rid of all this junk you've accumulated over the years. But it's baby steps.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to judge it necessarily, because it could just be seasons you go through, and you're passionate about it. I mean, it can be easy to you just blow it out of proportion and
Yeah.
say like, oh, I have a problem with compulsion or something. Like, maybe, but like nothing you said. It's not like you have a cocaine, box of cocaine that you've been storing up. Like these records and bikes and things.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about that later.
That's
Part two.
awesome.
Yeah.
The dark side.
Well, is there anything like, I mean, you're continuing to do these things. Like you're still motocross, you're still doing bicycles, you're still skateboarding, you still love music. Is there anything that you like, other than the Michael Jackson phase? Like, was there anything that you started that you kind of like where you went far enough and you're like, yeah, that's enough. I don't want to do it anymore. But I mean, you snowboard, you like all these really cool things, but you continue to do them. So they must really mean a lot to you that you continue to do them.
Yeah. So what's the question? Like, did I give
I don't even remember what the question was.
give any of them?
No, like, was there anything that you went into? Because you go into everything pretty hardcore. Was there anything that you started in and then you're like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore?
No. If I get into it, that's the other thing that I kind of like question, like why I do it the way that I do it. But usually when I do get into something completely, I almost just like I do have friends who can be like, oh, I was into this for a little bit and I'm no longer into it and I just get rid of it. And they're completely fine with that. Like they just cut ties. For whatever reason, I mentally like just latch onto the thing and it becomes part of what I do and just part of my story. And I don't ever like, I fade in and out of things, but I don't ever make the conscious decision of like, I am no longer doing that. You know what I mean? Except maybe breakdancing. My kids still try to get me to moonwalk and I refuse to do it.
Is it a conscious decision to get into the thing? Like, do you really think that out and say, do I want to commit to this? Or is it one of those like, oh, that's cool, I'm doing it?
That it's typically that I have consciously made the decision with certain things that I'm not going to get into it just because I don't need another thing. So like I've known people over the years that get into wine and I don't really like wine that much. So it makes it easy to not do it. But I've consciously made the decision, like, I know that if I go down that rabbit hole, it's just going to be another thing that I would want to buy or not even, it's not even about the money. It's just like, I want to experience it. I want to know what people are talking about and I just don't need it. And like, I've never really thought about getting into cigars, but that's kind of the same thing with that. When I was a kid, I was kind of into comic books. And at one point I kind of like thought like, oh, maybe I'll get into comic books. And I'm like, no, like I know myself well enough to know that then it's just going to be like, I got to buy 20 comic books a week to keep up with this thing. And then I just like, I don't, that's kind of the opposite of the way I'm trying to make my life go. And so, but when something does sort of grab hold, I can't, it's just like, I can't, yeah. It just it's at 0 to 60. You know.
You remind me of a mutual friend of ours called, his name's Doug Shum, and I've always admired that he comes to the brewery a lot, but he is like, if he finds something like coffee or if he gets involved with it, he is full in. Like he knows all about it. He knows how to brew it right. But I told him, I was like, that's really a blessing. Like you can recognize something quality. And then you are able to really enjoy it that much more because you understand the process. And it sounds like that's kind of the same with you. You know,
it's true, but like anything, this is another thing that I was actually thinking about this last night about how we in modern day society, we really have this tendency to everything's just either or. It's like we either do this or we do that. I saw this thing on YouTube a while back with Father Gregory Pine, and he was talking about just like our concept in modern day culture of sobriety. And like sobriety has come to mean you don't drink any alcohol, you don't do any drugs, you are completely sober. And he's like, but in reality, what sobriety means is like you can have alcohol and not get drunk. That's still sobriety. Like we have like made this like either or extremes,
black and white line.
Black and white. It's like you either do or you don't. And those extremes, I think, have like the problem with what you're saying, where it gets bad, and I have gone down this path multiple times in my life, is when you do get fully immersed in whatever it is you're fully immersed in. Like every single problem in people's life, pride can seep in. And then you've got to be you've got to know everything, and you've got to be like, you got to keep people in their place. So like when I was in like college, I took pride in, arguing about music with people. And like, if there was some record that I loved or some record that I hated and you had the opposing view, it became my mission that I was going to correct you. And I was going to prove to you that my position was right and yours was wrong. And it's like, how dumb, first of all. And like, now I'm like, if you approach me like that, like, the conversation will end before it starts because I don't want to hear it. You don't need to change my mind and I don't need to change yours. Like, we're all entitled to our opinions, and especially if something's so insignificant. But that can be, and I see it a lot, not just in myself, but that can be the downside of like becoming an expert in whatever you're interested in, because then there's just like the temptation to just become a jerk about it. Like, well, that guy's not drinking the right cup of coffee. I'm like, cares? Like, who cares what kind of coffee he's drinking, like, and I say that like talking about myself, like I have gone down that path so many times of like, my way of doing the thing is the elevated right way, and at the end of the day it's just pride and it's self-serving, and it's like, oh, congratulations, Thad, for figuring out the right record to listen to. And it's just, I just don't like that anymore.
It's funny you bring up the coffee thing, and I have a son who's got a great palate for coffee, and he likes a certain roaster and all that stuff. And he works for my company, and I drink Keurig coffee. I just drink the stupid pods. And I think he hated it. At first he was bringing in a grinder and a pour over, and I was like, I'll drink that. And then one day I was like, I'm just going to slip the pot in the thing and just make a cup. And I think it chapped him at first, but eventually he started drinking the pods because I think he was like, I'm not going to win this. Yeah. And there's a difference, but it's so slight that to me, I mean, he's got a good palate. And for me, it's probably like you with beer. Like, I'm sure you can taste stuff that I'm like, it's beer.
Yeah.
I really have I need to have a lot of adjuncts, which I've learned they're called, in my beer in order to like it. Otherwise, I don't really like beer. So anyway, the coffee thing was kind of funny.
Yeah. I get like, so I'm super into high-end audio too. Another rabbit hole I've gone down. Like, I'm an audiophile, which, if you don't know what that is, can sound like something that would send you to jail. It can send you to bankruptcy court because it's really expensive.
Like how expensive? Give me an example.
Not the stuff that I've got personally, but in this day and age, okay, just the other day I watched this video about this new turntable that came out. And the turntable costs $370,000.
Wow!
And it's not even the most expensive turntable.
That's like the.
We can put it.
That's
well, you wouldn't do that with this turntable.
No, I wouldn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
We'll put a link in the show notes though.
In case you want to buy one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
definitely.
Like, you can spend. I bet you can spend upwards of $20,000 now just on speaker cables. On the cables that go from your amplifier to your speaker,
just the copper,
or whatever.
You probably noticed that's what we use in our setup here.
That's why I sound so angelic.
Yeah.
They're from Amazon.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But when you get into that, I mean, it's a totally rewarding thing because when you reach like the level of what you think it should be, it just enhances music so much more, makes it so much more enjoyable to listen to. But when you talk about those little differences, you start to get into just the nitpicky things about, like literally moving a speaker 1/4 of a centimeter to like get something completely dialed in. And, I've got friends who make fun of me for that stuff. And they're like, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. I'm like, it does make a difference. Everything makes a difference. It's just whether you don't care. You know what I mean? So it's like if you talk
not
to
as important for you.
Yeah, it's not important at all. Like if you talk to someone who's a race car driver and you put new spark plugs in that car, or you put new tires on, especially new tires, they are going to 100% notice a difference. Whereas the average person who's not driving a race car every day, they're not going to notice. Like, why would they notice? And why would they even care? You know what I mean? So that's always an interesting thing to me. People are like, when people say to me, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. I'm like, well, it does. It's just you don't care about that. It's kind of what made me think of is what you bringing up the coffee. It's like how much you just care about those details is what's important to that person, and I'm not out to prove anything to anybody else.
Yeah, when it's something you taste or you hear, I think those are fairly subjective. So maybe other people can't hear the difference in that centimeter, but you can.
Yeah.
So you could argue till the day is long, but you're never going to agree because, like with me and my son, I can't taste the flavors that he can. Because everybody says it has a nutty overtone. I'm like, there's no nuts in this. It's chocolate or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's like, what? That's a hazelnut from Colombia. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
I got nothing.
So I got a question for you. So like, kind of getting to know how passionate you are about things, and how when you're turning your speaker just a little bit. I remember listening to people do like Dolby Video, Dolby Audio, and how to get all that tuned up right. So how does that affect your relationship with God? Because some people, Sunday's enough for me. Like, do you feel now because you grew up Catholic, right? So maybe talk through like your story of going through high school and college, but I'm kind of curious to know, with that much passion and you want things to be right, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Surprisingly, it all ties together.
Perfect. We wanted a bow on this episode.
So yeah, I'm a cradle Catholic, one of 7 kids, second oldest of 7 kids. Went to Catholic grade school, went to Catholic high school, met my now wife in high school. We both went to Pius here in Lincoln. I've always been a practicing Catholic, but I think like most people who can say that same thing, that's meant different things along the way. Have I always gone to Mass on Sundays? Yes. Has that always really meant something to me beyond just the feeling of an obligation? No. And especially at the times in my life where that's true of anybody, like late teens, early 20s, college age, like that age where you're really trying to figure out like, do I really believe this because I believe it, or do I believe this because I was told to believe it? Like, if you don't believe this, you're going to go to hell. That's no reason to do anything. Like fear-based motivation, like it's just at some point that runs out.
It can be a starting point.
It can be a starting point.
Yeah, it's never going to take you to the finish line.
Yeah, like you should really exercise because you're going to die early if you don't. Right. Like that might get you off the couch, but that shouldn't keep, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fear of something shouldn't be, 100%. Because at the end of the day, like, well, I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse, but at the end of the day, like what this is about is your relationship with God, like your personal relationship with Jesus, which my experience has been absolutely nothing to do with fear at all. Like it's not like, I think that if you get to know Jesus and you get to know God and you have a personal relationship with him, you figure out very soon that is not what he wants for anybody. And it's much like you said to me in conversations about like making the parallel between like us as fathers, we're all fathers, we all have children, our relationships with our children, and how like you can like segue that into that with our relationship with God. And it's like, do I want my kids to be scared of me? I mean, sure, there's times maybe it's like a learning tool of like, oh no, dad's going to be mad because I really messed up. Like, I get that. That's a normal human reaction. But do I want to be a consistent thing that they fear? Ooh, who wants that?
You'll get compliance, but you won't get
but you don't have any relationship with them. And when they turn 18, they're like, see ya. Like, I don't have nothing to do with you anymore. And I wouldn't blame them. You know what I mean? I got sidetracked. So yeah, there's just various times in my lives that I've kind of like been more into it and then not into it, and and it just kind of ebbed and flowed. And then it was a couple of years ago that I had started going to the UNL Newman Center, which I just love that church. I just love it. I love it. I that's like a Saturday Night Live thing, isn't it? I love it. As soon as I said it, I was like, that sounded terrible. Just they have adoration during the school year from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Just the amount of kids that are there. If national trends are that college kids are not showing up to church, it's not indicative there.
It's the antithesis.
It's the antithesis.
I mean, yeah, at Christmas or Easter, it's overflowing. It's standing room only.
My daughter told me yesterday that she heard that at Easter Vigil Mass in a couple of days, they're bringing something like 96 people into the church.
Yeah, last year it was like 80.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
The work they're doing there
Praise
is
God,
just incredible. I mean, Kevin Clark, the architect, like, well, we don't have a visual reference, so it doesn't. There's no point in me getting into it. Yeah, I mean, just like the raised pulpit, I've never seen that in a new church.
Yeah.
And Oh, I just love it there. Anyway.
The acoustics are amazing. Have you?
Oh, yes.
I mean, from an audio file.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. I just love that church, and it's it's on campus, which is right next to downtown. And when I'm downtown at the brewery, it's just right there. But I had started going there, just popping in here and there, and a number of years previous to that point, I had began questioning certain things about myself. Of like, why am I the way that I am? Why? And it's things that are somewhat trivial. Of like, why do I like certain things that a lot of people don't like, but I find appealing? That that could just be chalked up to personality, right? Two more deep things, more deep seated things, like why do I have certain behavior that I the whole St. Paul thing, like why do I not do the things I want to do and I do the things I don't want to do, like that whole question. And I was at the Newman Center one day and I was just kind of praying on it, and I would say that just like my participation in my faith over the years, that I had, it was kind of like touch and go at times, just kind of weaved in and out of the amount that I was invested in it. I kind of had come to this point, and I had kind of had a relationship with God before that, but I kind of knew maybe subconsciously that it could be a lot better. And I remember just kneeling in the Newman Center that day and just kind of asking God, like, I just don't understand like certain things about myself. Like, why am I the way that I am? And the best way I can describe it is, like we all had friends, and maybe you guys did it too. We all had friends in college who would go away for a year to find themselves. I never understood that. And matter of fact, I thought it was BS. Like people would say, I'm like, you're just looking for an excuse to go to Europe for a year. Like, I don't blame you. Like, now's the time to do it. But don't tell me it's some like philosophical, deep-seated, like, I'm finding myself, like, whatever. Well, here I am almost 50, and I realize maybe there's some merit to that.
Like, eating some crow. How's that taste?
Like, yeah, I mean, granted, this was a couple of years ago, but I was like, maybe there's just certain things about myself that I never really took the time to just evaluate and look at. And, Amy and I, we started dating when she had just graduated from high school, and it was the summer before my senior year. And we started dating, and then college, and we got married, I guess relatively young. Like, of our friend group, we were the first ones to get married, and I had just turned 22, and it was right before her 23rd birthday. A year later, our first daughter was born. So life just kind of just started happening pretty quick. And so, like, I missed that opportunity to, like, if I was going to do some soul searching, like, life just happened, and then I was in the thick of just raising a family, doing that. And then no regrets. I have absolutely no regrets of how things unfolded, but that's just how they unfolded for me. So here I am in my late 40s questioning, like, why am I the way that I am? And I'm at the Newman Center one day, and I just asked God that. I'm like, can you show me, like, just why I am the way that I am? And I just remember getting this, like, feeling of, like, just show up. Just show up, and, like, we'll get the ball rolling. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but okay, I guess I'm showing up. And so I left the Newman Center that day, and the next day I came back and just knelt down or sat down or whatever, and the Eucharist was exposed, and I just looked at it, and just, like, in my head, I'm like, well, here I am. Like, I, like, part the clouds.
I fulfilled my end of the bargain.
Yeah, like, show me. And he did. I mean, it's never, my experience with God and my relationship with God is nothing is ever like a smack over the head, ever. And I mean the good things. I mean the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't care what we're talking about. I don't care if we're talking about sin. I don't care what it is. It's always like, if anything, it's like, Thad, you need to pump the brakes and be patient. And you, like, I'm not a patient person. My kids will attest to that. I am not patient. And what I have learned is I'm not patient with myself either. And so this, like, notion of, like, just slow down and, like, we'll work through this. And I think that there's something to, like, if God or you or whoever were to smack me over the head with the answers to my questions, it'd probably be too much. Like, I don't know if I could take it all at once. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what that means. I don't know, like, what is I'm going to find out that's like, but there remain certain mysteries about myself to me, but there's certain questions that at the same time have been answered, of just, like, understanding things. And it's not always through, like, people who have no spiritual component to their life, they see things like this and they're like, oh, what, you hear God, or like they look at you like you've got a unicorn horn growing out of your head or whatever, and it's not always like, do I feel God's presence and maybe like what he's trying to convey to me? Yes, in a very intangible way, but it can also be through the books that I read. It can be through my conversations with people like you, that things are presented to me, and I mean, I think you guys could probably both attest to this too, but it's like when it happens, it's undeniable. You just know that like what you're experiencing is truth. The same way that I can look at my wife and I can say I love her. Talk's cheap. Anybody can say whatever they want, but I know I do. And that's all that matters. Like, like if someone said, well, prove it. Well, I would hope that my actions would prove it. But even if my actions don't, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Like, I believe it and I know it's true. And it's the same with my relationship with God and how this has all sort of evolved. Like, there's just been times along the way where things happen and literally my hair will stand up on my arms. Like, it'll stand up because I'm like, and just I'll get goosebumps because it's so undeniable of what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing. So all of that is to say, to answer your question, yes, I've lived by this motto my whole life of anything worth doing is worth overdoing. And surprisingly, I guess the one thing I didn't mention in the about me part of this is I run a brewery here in Lincoln called Boiler Brewing Company. And that motto, me and the other founding partner who was the brewer who just recently retired a week ago, that was our thing. Like, we would always say anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So if we're gonna make beer, do it if it's got chocolate in it, you shouldn't wince and say, oh, is there really chocolate in here? Like, you should know beyond the shadow of a doubt that there is chocolate in that beer. Like, overdo it. Like, make your point. In the last year, I've since realized that in my personal life, I changed it. Only one thing worth doing is worth overdoing, and that's my relationship with God. And all those other things, like, I had for so long made them so central. Like, whatever I was into at the time, like, it really became my identity. It's like, if this month band X was there actually is a band called X. Whatever band was my favorite band, I would have their t-shirt on and you would know, and I would make sure you knew that they were my favorite band. Or I get into motocross and dirt bikes and I've got motocross stuff on because now, like, that's what I'm into. And that's not all bad, whatever. But I've since realized that, like, that stuff is not my identity, and that it's all fine and dandy and keep these, but the point is to keep them in their proper place and a perspective. They're all a gift. Like, all that stuff is a gift, right? Everything's a gift. This next breath I'm about to take is a gift, but none of that should ever trump my relationship with God. Like, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. So, you asked having this like all in attitude. Yeah, like, it's totally informed my relationship with God in so much that my relationship with God has just grown to be so much better. So that's gotten better, and all these other things, while still very much part of my life. So music's a very good example, because that's been the thing that's pretty much been there since age 5 to present day, about really like an integral part of my life. And I won't get into the details, but a year and a half ago, I got this notion that maybe things were supposed to change with that, and confided in certain people that I trusted, what their opinion was about, like, I sort of felt like maybe I should not maybe abandon that part of my life. And it was really devastating to
the music part.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so much so that I told my wife. So, well, is it okay if I tell the story?
Yeah.
You know it.
It's your story.
So one night I was sitting, it was 2 summers ago, I was sitting in my kitchen late at night, just going down the YouTube rabbit hole of watching live bands. And I remember I was watching a live video of The Cure, the band The Cure. And I remember just having this moment of like, I love music. I love it so much. And like, just in that moment, thanked God for it. Like, thank you for music. Like, I love it. And it was shortly thereafter that I just got this the best way I can describe it is an invitation. Like an invitation of like what felt like like abandoning it, like no more music. And like it, like my heart skipped a beat, no pun intended. The needle scraped across the record, like what? 5 minutes later, I'm in my kitchen and I'm like sobbing, like crying. Like it was like, oh, you're in love with that girl? Like you need to break up with her. Like what? And so went to bed that night and I'm like, okay, like I just need to like pray on this and like, is this what he's really asking me to do? So I went to bed. Next morning, I get up. I go to the Newman Center. I'm praying, and I'm like, "Is this really what you want me to do?" And it was that whole thing of like, just be patient. Like what happened the night before was very real. Like I cannot deny like how real it was. But at the same time, I think I was like I'm already thinking like, okay, I'm selling my records. I've got to sell my stereo equipment. I might as well start doing that tomorrow. Like if this is what I'm doing, like rip off the Band-Aid and get it over with. And I remember that night, I was like, if this is what you want me to do, I will do it. I'm going to be honest, I don't want to. I think as is indicated by my response right now, you know? So the next day I'm praying and he's like, just, you know, I get this feeling of like, just hold up, like, just hold on. And I think it was like the next day or the day after that was my wife's and my anniversary. And I had already, you know, like decided like I need to tell Amy about this for no other reason than I'm going to start selling my records and she's going to be like, what the heck are you? You know, it's like the Field of Dreams thing. Like you're mowing down your corn to build this baseball field. Like, what are you doing? Because again, everyone that's known me since day one, it's like, I'm the music guy. I'm super into music. And like, now you're selling all your records. Like, what are you doing? So I needed to like put this in some context to her. So we went out to dinner and we're driving and I'm like, hey, I got to tell you something. She's like, what? And I get like 2 sentences in and I'm just like, I can't talk. Like I'm crying and she's like, what's the matter? And I finally choke it out and she's like, okay, like I understand. And like she never, like she just listened. She never said you're crazy. She never said don't do that. She never said do that. She just listened. You know what I mean? And I was just like, so, you know, I get done blubbering all over myself and it was the next day I asked her, I said, so do you think I'm crazy? And she's like, no, I don't think you're crazy. But she's like, I want to make sure you're okay. And you know, like she had every right to say that. It's like, do you got a brain tumor or something? Like, because what you're suggesting is so unlike you and it's so out of left field. And I was like, that's fair. Like you're right. It's like, I remember I went to, I made a doctor's appointment. Like, am I okay? Like, I didn't tell my doctor what was going on, but I'm just like, am I okay? You know, do I have a brain? I didn't say that, but he's like, all your blood work came back fine. You're perfectly healthy. And I'm like, okay. And then my spiritual advisor, I talked to Amy and I was like, maybe we should go talk to him about this and see what he thinks. So we made an appointment with him and we went and told him. And it was the same thing. Like, I get 2 sentences in and I'm just like, I can't even talk. Like, I'm just devastated by this. And he did the same thing. He didn't say like, oh, you're on to something, sell everything. He didn't say don't do it. He just said, just continue to pray about this. Like you're being asked of or invited to something, but I don't think you really know what it is yet. And you might be, because of my personality, you might be getting ahead of yourself on this. It's like, okay, fair enough. The one thing he did say when I left, he's like, man, I'm really excited to see how this ends up. And so kept praying on it, and it was weird at first because then it was almost like, well, am I supposed to listen to music at all? Like then it was like, if I put a record on, is that weird? Am I not supposed to do this? And I even went so far as to tell my kids about it, like not in great detail, but like, hey, I think it's time for me to get rid of my records. If there's anything you guys want out of here, just tell me and you can have it, and then I won't sell it. And so I kept praying on it, discussed with people that is the one thing my spiritual advisor told me. He's like, just be selective of who you talk to about this. And here I am on the internet telling everybody, but at that time, he's like, because there's certain people that they're not going to understand where you're coming from and they'll think you're losing your mind. And he's completely right. Like I talk to people whose opinions I trust. And I did pick certain people that I was like, thought they would challenge me on it of like, yeah, you're nuts. Like, what do you hear voices or like, what are you talking about? You're going to like, yeah, you're gonna sell your records. You're stupid. And nobody said that. Nobody did. People were the most response I got from people is like taken aback of like, whoa, like, some people it's like, there's no way I could do that. There's no way I could give up music or whatever it was they were passionate about. And it was one friend that at one point, he said, music's a beautiful thing. Music is a gift from God. Like, I don't know why he would ask you to give that up. He's like, and I'll back this up and say that when I was praying on this, I kept getting this like sense of like, or the word identity kept popping up in my head. Identity, identity, identity. But at first I didn't really know what that meant. And again, at that point, I'm just so fixated on like, well, sell everything. Like it's over and done with, So in talking to this one friend, he said, maybe what he's just asking you to do is reevaluate your identity with it. That, it doesn't have to be your identity. And there was a certain point in praying on it where I feel like the book was just kind of closed on it. And that's what it was like, this isn't your identity. And the funny thing is now I love music more, seriously, truly more than I ever have. It's more rewarding to listen to music, yet I listen to it less now than I ever have in my life. But when I do, it's much more intentional. And I almost just soak it in. I kid you not, 10 times more than I ever did before. Because before it had just turned into like, got to hear the new thing. It was all disposable. Like, listen, get in the car, listen. I never listen to music in the car anymore unless I'm with my kids. Like, I'll sit down at night for 1 to 3 hours, just depending, and I will do nothing but listen to music. And, there's sometimes here and there, whatever, like during the day, sometimes I'll listen to music, but it's so much in less frequency, but so much more intense and pleasurable and fulfilling now than it's ever been in my life. And, it was just you hear stories like this all the time of people like answering God's call to do something where it's initially scary as can be and you don't want to do it. And then you realize the fruit of it is better than you ever thought it was going to be,
Very Abraham Isaac is what I keep picturing is, you were asked, if it was God, right? So I wanted to kind of just touch on like from a discernment of spirits perspective, like St. Ignatius, when you entered into that, like, were you in a state of desolation or consolation? I think that's a really important thing that your spiritual director probably talked to you about, right? So that you kind of can make a better decision. Okay, where am I supposed to change something now radically that's such a part of me? Well, if you're in a state of desolation, that's something that you definitely don't do, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think you would agree with that, right? Is that St. Ignatius would say, in desolation, you don't make a change. With something you were already doing. But then I was kind of thinking through, you said I'd be willing to do that. Like I'm willing to put this away and I'm willing to sell it. So that proved your like who's got the higher level. Is it your music or God? And so you made a choice. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hearing you say that
Yeah, and I think I would never have consciously admitted to this, but I think that there were definite periods of my life, probably more of my life than not, where, again, I would never have admitted to this, but in reality, music probably was my God. Like I just, the thought of living without it, I couldn't do it, and I think like realizing that now, but that's the interesting thing. I'm realizing this on the spot, like that was shown to me so gently, like that was shown to me so not like, a thunderbolt came out of the sky and hit me over the head and say, you're really messing up on this, bud. It was more like, hey, like, again, it was just this sense of an invitation. It wasn't a demand. It was just like, maybe consider this, maybe think of it this way, like, I'm not telling you what to do. We can get into free will, but that, and I look back now and I just like what I learned from that and what I gained from that and what he showed me. It's just like, and it's not only that, but it's the manner in which it was done. You know, again, like what we were talking about before about like God is not somebody to be terrified of. You know, like he loves us the same way we love our kids. You know, like you want to teach your kids and you want them to grow up and grow and become the best versions of themselves. Like any good parent wants that, I think, you know, like God loves us infinitely more than we're capable of loving anybody. Like, why would he not want that, you know?
So what I hear in that story is it's super parallel to the rich man in scripture that walks up to Jesus. And like you were saying, I've been a faithful Catholic technically, but he was inviting you into a deeper relationship. That's what he did with that man when he said, what are you doing? He said, well, I obey all the commandments and I ... I'm checking the boxes. And he said, knowing that he was wealthy, he said, then sell everything you have. And to you, that call was, are you willing to get rid of music? And I think that's why it sounds like that's why there was not confusion for you, but just like, I'm not sure what to do with this. He wanted to know where your heart was at, because it's like Jesus with that guy. What he was inviting him to was, do you want to go in a deeper relationship with me? You're going to have to sell that stuff and get rid of it so that you can come with me and follow me and learn from me. And that's what I hear him saying to you was, if you're willing to give that up, I can go deeper. And I can make music more powerful in your life. I can do both. We tend to think I have to choose. But it's like God showed you, I can do both. I can bring you closer to me and have you enjoy music more.
I think it's like what we were talking about earlier too. It's like we're so programmed in this day and age to think either or.
Yeah.
And like that was me in that situation. It's like, well, I either have it or I don't. And if I don't, it's all got to go. And I don't, like, I just think so few things in life, that's the thing. Like that's the approach to take. There's like everything happens in the middle, right? And you've got these extreme fringes on either side that 9 times out of 10 doesn't end well. You know what I mean? And I don't care what we're talking about. You know, we can get into politics and talk about that or whatever, but like you get these like extremes, and that's where people are just like willing to die on their hill. And it's like, no, like bring it back here. You know, like there's usually like there's some area in the middle where like the magic happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my guess is that's not the first time that God invited you into that space. There were probably
sure
times
not.
before, but like what I think to your point, God doesn't whack us over the head with stuff. He gently invites, and he gives you the choice. And in that moment, or in that discernment, as you talked with your wife, spiritual director, and friends, like you gave it some space to kind of marinate, and then you came to an answer that ended up giving you, I think, what God wanted from you.
Yeah. Well, I'm still a work in progress, so we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I may show up on your doorstep in the next 6 months with a bunch of records saying you want to buy them.
And 7 bicycles.
So you went to UNL, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did that get you into, gosh, I mean, now you're owner of a brewery and successful. I mean, we were talking earlier, are you guys have a drink that's second in the country?
Yeah, so there's an I'm pretty sure it's the most widely used app that's for craft beer that it's called Untapped, and so people can get on it, users, and it's used as like a way to keep track of the beers that you've drank, and you can rate them, and it's on a scale of 0 to 5 bottle caps with like quarter increments along the way. And there's also a social media component to it or whatever. Well, they come out with to say like, I mean, there's all these different metrics they follow of like the highest rated beer in America, the highest rated beer globally, the highest rated beer in Europe, the highest rated beer in this particular style. So it was like a month or a month and a half ago, they came out with all of that information for 2024, and we tied, and we didn't tie. Technically, we were number 2 of the highest rated beer in America in 2024, and we lost by 1/1000th of a point. Wow. So the beer that won was like 4, I don't remember exactly, but it was like 4.887, and we were 4.886. Like that's what we lost.
So you're trying to say if we would have voted, you probably would have won.
Thanks a lot, jerks.
Yeah.
Push it right over the.
It's
So
on
what
us.
was the beer called?
Double barrel coconut killa AF. So double mash Russian Imperial Stout. So it's if stout is black. This particular kind of, it's double mash, so it uses twice the grain in the brewing process, which just raises the alcohol, it raises the flavor, it raises just everything. And when the beer's done, well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. That then once the beer's fermented, it goes into one bourbon barrel for about a year, and then transferred to another bourbon barrel for about a year, and then taken out and conditioned on a whole bleep load of coconut, hence the AF at the end of the name. But when you pour this beer, it looks and has the viscosity of like used motor oil, like just super thick. I think that particular beer, it was either 14 or 15% alcohol. Like it's high. It's not like you're drinking Bud Lights, it's kind of the opposite of that. But just, I mean, if you like coconut, you're going to love this beer because it's just over the top coconut. But then you get hints of bourbon because from the bourbon barrels in it. Just because of the nature of what a stout beer tastes like, especially that big of a stout, there's like notes of chocolate too. Well, to most people, Jonathan would probably be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, my mouth is watering just hearing all those words. Chocolate, coconut.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think those are, beyond the confines of Lincoln, Nebraska, those are probably the beers that we're the most known for is those beers. So
there's a real brand around the whole Boiler. Like I didn't know, other than talking to Doug, like how there's a whole society for the Boiler Brewing Company, right?
So we've got a thing called Boiler Society, which is a paid annual membership, and the majority of those beers, the barrel-aged beers, are only available if you're a Boiler Society member. So when we come out with those beers, 9/10 of it, 4/5 of it, pick your ratio, goes into bottles. 750 milliliter bottles that look something similar to this. And we've actually got members like all over the world. And they've got this elaborate proxy program set up where, I've got some guy who lives in Belgium, and then he's got a proxy who lives here who will come get his bottles and then ship them to Belgium. And then the guy in Belgium returns the favor of like, oh, there's stuff in Belgium this guy in Nebraska wants. Wow. So they ship them back to him. And then we put a little bit in kegs. It's usually like a gallon or two, not very much. So like when you drink beers like this, you drink like when we pour them in the tap room, it's a 5-ounce pour. And typically when you're done with that, that's pretty good. Like you don't, it's not like you're drinking a pint of it and then saying, I'm going to have another one of those. Yeah. You're asking for big, big trouble if you do that. Diabetes, if nothing else. So a little tiny bit goes into kegs. The rest goes into bottles. And the people that are in Boiler Society get those bottles.
That's great.
Okay, so you can't show us a bottle and not offer us some. So,
Mike, would you like some?
I would.
Love you, Thad.
So what is this one right here?
So So we just celebrated our 9th anniversary, and this was one of the beers we released for it. It's called Double Barrel Brunch. I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So double mash Russian Imperial Stout. This one was actually an extended boil, which means the very first process of brewing is you've got this big vessel and you put all this malted barley in it. For a beer like this, it's almost to the top. You fill it with water. You boil it, or you boil it, and then once the water is done extracting all of the sugar and the flavor from the grain, you transfer that liquid to another tank, and at that point you have what's considered wort. With most beers, you then go on to like the fermentation process with the wort. The reason it's called double mash is because once you finish that process, you take out all the spent grain that you just used. You put a new fresh batch of grain in, and you bring that wort back, and you repeat the process. And then in this case, we let it boil for 24 hours, which is a normal beer, like a Pilsner or something. It's not 24 hours. And that's what just brings everything up a whole notch. And then you transfer it and you ferment it. Then you put it in bourbon barrels. So like this beer, when the base beer was made, was like over 2 years ago.
Wow.
So a long time ago.
I remember when like craft beer used to be like weird guys in their basement.
Oh, it still is.
Okay, good to know. That hasn't gone out of style.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's insane. I mean, there's craft breweries everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is cool because and I remember asking you about that. Like, don't you fear the competition? You're like, no, we encourage competition because we're all in this together. And you even do some. I think you had said where you work with other craft breweries to like co-make it or whatever you call that.
Collaborate. Yeah. So collaborations in craft beers, it's always for a long time that's been the thing. The sort of like prevailing attitude in craft beer has been like rising tides floats all boats.
Okay.
And so it's slowed down the past couple of years, and so things might get or have been getting a little bit more competitive, just because we all got to keep our doors open. But even now, collaborations have taken on a new meaning they're almost more beneficial, because the cross marketing potential by doing that is really good. So there's like sort of two sides to it. There's the marketing piece of it, but then there's also I might learn something from you. You might learn something from me that neither of us knew about making this particular beer.
Not being afraid to share.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, because I can see where you would learn from each other's processes, and then you're both able to increase by whatever percentage the quality or whatever of your beer.
Yeah. I've always liked that about the craft beer industry, because like you don't ever see like a Nike and Adidas collaboration, or an Apple and a Mac. Like that's never ever going to happen.
If they watch this, maybe that'll start happening, and because of you.
Yeah.
I mean,
they do sponsor us, but. So can I ask you about your grandkids real quick, while you're kind of doing stuff? So you have 2 grandchildren.
Yep.
Boys, girls.
Both girls.
Okay. How's that?
Awesome. Awesome. I have one more glass.
I mean, you're young to have grandkids. You're not 50 yet, right?
I'll be 50 in a week and 3 days. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, the reality of the situation is my oldest daughter, her and her husband live in Long Island, where my daughter is going to veterinary school. And so I actually just got back, today's Thursday, I just got back Tuesday night. I went out there for a couple of days because my second granddaughter, I hadn't met her yet. She's only like 2 months old. So I went out there to meet her and spend some time with them. Having grandkids is amazing. And it's like, even like just on the surface, the thing, like, the funny thing that people say, it's like, you get to do all the fun things. And then when it's like, it's like they start to get tired or fussy or whatever, it's like, back to mom. It's totally true. It's you have to, though, like for me, like you get into dad mode for so long. It's sometimes hard. Like you consciously have to check out of that, of like, no, like disciplining her is not my thing.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I don't want her to have memories of me.
Yeah.
That's not my job.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do it. But like your knee-jerk reaction is like, I mean, unless of course they're doing something that they're going to hurt themselves, sure. Like, you probably shouldn't do that. But in terms of like, go to your room, like those days are over. Like I don't have to do that anymore, and it's just, I don't know how I got here. Like, I don't know how, there's parts of me that still feel like I'm 20, like I just don't know.
You look like it.
Oh.
How old is your youngest child?
He's 14.
So 14 now.
13.
Okay.
He'll be 14 soon.
Okay, so you're still parenting very much in the teenage years, but
we've got one left too. So the next oldest one is my son George, and he's 18. So technically we've got one more that's a minor. It's interesting though. I've told people this lately. I didn't anticipate this at all. I honestly think, at least now, until I might learn or figure something else out, having adult children sometimes can be more difficult than having like minor children.
Yeah. I'd say that's a true statement for us. Yep.
Yeah. With when they're kids, when they're minors, it's like it's your job to form them. It's your job to inform how they grow up. And I was completely comfortable doing that. When they're adults, if they're doing something that you're like, well, I wouldn't do it that way, you got to pick your, you don't just blurt it out.
Your timing and your words,
and
all of it. Yeah.
I've had relationships in my own life with adults when I was younger that like, or even as an adult, family members that just like, didn't end the best, and it had all to do with how I felt like I was treated. And I'm like, I find myself like I can by default start going down that path because that's what I saw, and then I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And sometimes like the best thing is just to keep your mouth shut when it's really hard to do.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It can be hard to do.
Yeah.
Your son is how old? Your oldest?
He'll be 19.
Okay, and I've got a 4 kids that are adults, and you have the complexity of we both have kids that work or have worked for us.
Yeah.
And that adds a whole nother level of
Yep.
like, oh, I'm dad and boss.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It can be. It's rewarding, but I think for me the biggest thing is I never thought about it. I didn't anticipate it, and then when it presented itself to me, I'm like, oh, I'm completely unprepared. I don't know how to handle this because again, my knee-jerk reaction is just dad mode to say what I think, and I can't do that. Or if I'm going to do that, I gotta proceed lightly. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to. At the end of the day, they're adults and they can make their own decisions. And that's not to say that I'm just like, well, we'll do whatever, go hang yourself. Like it's whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't think that, but it's on some level, not that my work's done, but it's not the same. It's not the same as when they were little kids and you were teaching them like, don't touch the hot stove.
Well,
we
yourself. Go through these stages of like compliance. You need them to comply for their own safety and well-being, and then the awkward teenage years where you're kind of transitioning, and then you get to that adult, and it's like really at best I'm kind of a mentor to you if you want it, but that's completely your choice. So we have to kind of earn relationship, or I mean they're supposed to honor us either way, but it's a changing dynamic. There's no like definitive lines. It just you roll with it.
Yep. Do you guys feel too? I mean, it's not lost on me on who my audience is, so I think I know what your answer is going to be. But you hear these taglines, especially like growing up Catholic and going to church, that like how children are a gift from God, and then especially when you're a young parent and you've got all these little kids, and all you're doing is spending money on and changing diapers, and not that you don't love your kids in that moment, but it's a lot, right? Like you're just like. Not that you ever thought that your kids weren't a blessing, but now that my kids are older, I just look back at like what it took to get here, and I just wouldn't change a thing. And like that whole thing of saying that whole tagline that children are a gift, like I own that in my heart now. Like you know what I mean? Like I look at my kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even picture my life without them, and you could say that about a lot of things, I suppose, but like with your kids, you're just like, and how much you in your heart, like you just want what's best for them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know where I'm going with this.
I think sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I just was going to say, I think that it really relates to the spiritual life too, right? As far as, as God introduces himself to you, and like kind of how you experienced him in the Newman Center, and like he's very close to you and he's very comforting, but as you grow in maturity in the spiritual world, I think he pulls back a little bit to kind of give you your own legs to stand on and make your choices, but he's always there with you. But I think I think a lot of saints have gone through that, where you hit these dark nights, not necessarily, but you're like, as a parent, you're sort of like letting them sort of walk on their own and make their decisions. You're right there with them, and you won't abandon them, but you're very much letting them kind of navigate themselves.
Yeah. Well, and then like you think about your own experience, and like my parents very much did that for me. Like I made horrendous decisions when I was a new adult. I did things that if I go back now and I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, what are But you have to give them enough rope to hang themselves. Otherwise, like, do you ever really cut the cord? You know what I mean? But it can be difficult. Yeah. It can be a difficult.
Yeah, you want to
thing.
rescue them.
So I feel like you're a little bit of a beer tease. You put this in front of me, and then I'm just having to watch it. But I know you're going to say, no, we need to let it rest or something.
Oh, no, how about it?
No, okay, so what's in there? What are the adjuncts? What are we supposed to taste in that?
Okay, I had to look it up. I lose sight of I forget like what barrels we use.
To the barn again.
To the barn.
Again. To the barn again. I might have something else.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not waiting for
Not saying anything about that one, but I'm going to go with this golden bottle over here.
So this is the exact description of this beer. It's a double mashed extended boil Russian Imperial Stout, aged over 2 years, first in a hand-selected 9-year Willett Family Estate bourbon barrel, then transferred into a Bliss Cinnamon Maple Syrup bourbon barrel, conditioned on freshly roasted Kona coffee beans, toasted organic coconut, raw organic coconut, as well as a blend of our favorite vanilla beans.
That is amazing.
You like it?
That's an understatement.
That's an amazing. So it's so, I don't know what the right word is. It's like saturated with flavor.
I just want to chug it, but you said don't do that.
Well, you can do whatever you want. Again, free will.
I'd like to be sitting up at the end of this.
Yeah, so
Doggone.
this particular
I can see at the end of this, like, where'd Jonathan go?
He's laying on the ground.
Laying on the hay bales over there. 'Cause this is a barn. This is an actual barn. You may not realize that.
Yeah.
But there's ladybugs everywhere.
They're on my
They're
shoulder.
like flying everywhere.
Thad walked in. He's like, "Oh, I just wondered what the background was behind. There's literally a track. You can't see it, but I could touch it. There's a tractor here. There's an American flag. What is that pelt?
Wood stove. Those are buffalo
Oh, wow.
pelts up there.
I see a raccoon and a fox pelt.
Yeah. Yep.
We could be making all
different,
this up, but we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
So that's
This
like
is very
it's
good.
14% alcohol.
What's
so
this one called? What's this?
Double barrel brunch.
Brunch. And is this a new one that you just came out with? Or?
Yeah, we came out with this almost 2 weeks ago for our anniversary, our 9th anniversary. Yeah.
Doggone.
So if you were to open that, this is a newbie question, but like when you open a beer like that, do you have to, if you don't finish it, do you put it in the refrigerator? How do you maintain that?
Surprisingly, with beers like this, so like a normal beer, like an IPA or Pilsner or whatever, it's like you either got to finish it then, or it's kind of, like
Once you open that up,
it's going to get oxidized. Oxygen is an enemy of beer.
Yeah, but this isn't carbonated? This is carbonated.
It is carbonated, but it's so thick that like to really get it to carbonate is it's very lowly carb.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe the thickness. Like you said, oil. Like it almost is a thick.
is, yeah.
It's not syrupy. It's not. It has a little bit of carbonation. You can catch
Little
in
bit.
there.
There's a little bit of carbonic bite, but very little. I have found just by accident, and I've had other people tell me the exact same thing though, is, well, I think one night you were over and we opened one of these.
Oh yeah.
And we drank about half of it, and then it sat out on the counter overnight, over 24 hours. No cap, no lid, no nothing. And I poured some the next night, and I swear it was better the second night than it was the first.
Wow.
Which it's got to say something to like just the sheer massiveness of the beer that, like I said, most other beers you do that with, and not only is the carbonation going to go away, but then just the oxygen contacting the beer will spoil it, and it just no one's going to want to drink it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and this kind of reminds me of I don't have one, but one of those soda streams or whatever, and you buy the syrup and then you put the carbon. Like, oh, are you supposed to put carbonation in this to make this feel like a beer? But like, oh, this is just so dang rich and good.
Rich is a good word.
Yeah.
So if we were to go to the Boiler, can you get one of these, or is this part of the Boiler Society?
So these were available to the public for our anniversary party. Now with a lot of the barrels, so like the one way that people that aren't Boiler Society members can get the bottles and not become a member and still try the bottles is at some point after we release them, we have what's called a cellar program, and so they're available via the cellar program, but they're for on-site consumption only.
Okay.
So like you can't get them to go. You can just drink them. Most people, they're going to share this with 2 or 3 other people. Mm-hmm. So you come in with a group of friends and you get a bottle and you share it. So that's what this is now. It's like you can come there and you can have it on site, but not to go.
Would you? I love the story about your pickle pilsner. Would you want to tell that real quick?
Yeah.
Just the people. I thought it was just fascinating.
So we have a beer called Pickle Pills that we came out with. Man, it was pre-pandemic. So maybe 7-8 years ago. We do series of themed trivia nights in the tap room, and one night we were doing Rick and Morty, which I still to this day have never watched. I don't know what the premise of it is. I know it's a cartoon, but we were doing Rick and Morty trivia, and one of my servers said, "Oh, we should have a pickle beer." Apparently, there's a guy named Pickle Rick.
Oh yeah, my kids used to always go Pickle Rick.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
I don't know either. He's a character on Rick and Morty. And so the server is like, "Hey, we should have a pickle beer for trivia." Like, okay, so we talked about it, and I went to the store and I bought some Klaus and pickle spears, and Tim, our brewmaster who just retired recently, he tried it with a pilsner that we had, and he's like, "Yeah, this works great. Like, it tastes good." And so what we did is you pour a regular pint, you put the pickle in it, you pour the pint, and then we also give you a side of pickle juice with it. So if you want to make it even more pickly, you drink a little bit of the beer, and then you pour the pickle juice in it. We thought that this was going to be like a one and done thing, like trivia night, it's over. We had some pickles left over after trivia night, so we kept it on the menu, and it's never ever left. Like I now when I buy pickles, I buy them from Cisco, and I go and I get 5-gallon buckets of pickle spears that have 240 to 260 pickle spears in it, and I'm buying like 4 to 6 buckets at a time. There's weeks that at our South location, it's the #1 selling beer. Like, so we can't go away. And I mean, they are fun to drink because then when you get done, you've got this little snack, this like beer saturated pickle that you can eat.
Can you confirm, because you can get those in a can to go. There's a pickle in the
There's
can.
a pickle in the can.
Can you get it out?
If you want to rip apart the can. And people, like, you see pictures on Untapped where people are like, yep, there's a pickle in there. And it's like this
No
mangled
way.
can. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, they're refreshing. It's like perfect. I mean, people drink them for whatever reason. Like, you know, they're there just for trivia or whatever. But, like, I've always thought, like, yeah, like, if you went for a really long run or a long bike ride, like, you're supposed to, like, have something acidic and salty. Like, that would be the perfect drink for it because you're getting that, like, replenishment of whatever. I guess it's the sodium. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so we've to date made in 9 years, we've made over 1,000 like individual beer, cider, mead, and seltzer like flavors profiles.
Like different variants of drink.
Yeah.
Is that normal for a craft brewery?
No,
that sounds like a lot.
yeah, it is a lot. We don't distribute. Initially, we didn't distribute at all. Like the only place you could get our beer was in the tap room. We've a little bit branched out from that, not a ton, but the fact that we don't distribute makes that possible. So like if you're a distribution brewery, you know, like you take New Belgium, for example, which is a brewery in Fort Collins, and then they have one in North Carolina too. They have a beer. One of their flagship beers is Fat Tire. They're making Fat Tire around the clock, whether they like it or not. And I'm not bashing that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the model.
Yep.
But you know, if you've got X amount of tanks and one of them constantly has Fat Tire in it, there's just less tanks to make beer in. When Tim and I were designing Boiler, we just didn't want to do things that way. We wanted to keep it. My initial thought was have a craft beer bar, but all the beer is made by us. So in craft beer bars, they get a 5-gallon keg of something, and when that's gone, they replace it with something else. And they replace it with something else, and they replace it with something else. So it's always changing. There's always something new. And our idea was we'll do the same thing, but it'll just all be our own beer.
I kind of like that. So I had a burger at Honest Dave's, which is a local joint. They've got 4 or 5 locations, and they kind of have their staple burgers, but then the rotating one. Mm-hmm. It sounds like your pickle pills, like that. I can always go get that if I like it.
Yeah.
But there's constantly a rotating, and so when I go in, because I know I like their regular burgers, I always get something off the rotating. So I'm like, well, I can always get one of those, and I just never go back to it. I always get something that's rotating, which is kind of what I like about this. I don't know if it's the hops or whatever. I don't like normal beer, like a Busch Light. Hard pass. Pass. But and so when we became friends, we would go out for coffee, but we'd just go to the tap room and sit down with a cup of coffee. And he's like, "Well, just try this beer. You're gonna like this beer." And it was all, I don't know what you call them, but hoppy stuff. IPAs. And I'm like, I'm sure it's good to people, but it's not good to me. And then he's like, well, try this mead. And I'm like, well, I do like mead. And then he's like, try a stout, a double mash, whatever. And I'm like, okay, now this I like. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I actually like beer. I just don't like the IPA stuff.
Yeah. Tim had this thing when he was still there, like when people would come in and say that, well, I don't like beer. Like our sort of canned response is, okay, challenge accepted. Like we'll find the thing that you like, because a lot of the stuff we make tastes nothing like beer.
Well, no, you make sours and stuff that taste like raspberries. There's literally cream cheese in a drink I drank one time. I'm like, I can see the cream cheese floating around in there.
Yeah,
this is some amazing stuff.
Yeah,
so I can feel my ears getting a little tingling.
Can you feel it? I was starting to laugh because I'm like, you're starting to slowly.
Oh no! It's happening.
It's the beginning of the end.
And yet I'm pouring myself another one.
Can we switch gears just a minute for what's your favorite book? What would be? I mean, you've got some really cool book recommendations I've talked to you about in the past, and if you have a
favorite book.
Thank you.
So can I do like
multiple
a secular and a
yeah, that's good.
So surprisingly, when I went to university, I was an English major, and the whole time I was there, I finished exactly one book. One book.
I'd like to see your degree.
Yeah, I finished it after one of the classes I took was the Western. So we read all these like Louis L'Amour and all these like Western, and I just couldn't get into it. But the very last one we read, it was a Larry McMurtry book called Leaving Cheyenne. And it's not. I'm not going to recommend it on its moral basis because it's not very good in that regard. But I was so captivated by the story that the semester was over and I kept reading it. Like I really liked it. I don't know if I'd say that's my favorite. Jack Kerouac's On the Road was always like something that I really liked. I read that at that time in my life when I should have been out finding myself, and that was sort of my, well, I'm not actually doing it, so I'm living vicariously through Jack Kerouac. So I like that book.
Finding yourself?
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
What a stupid notion. Wait till you're 50.
Yeah.
I when I was younger too, I really liked Kurt Vonnegut. I just thought, again, like I don't agree with everything that he wrote in his position on things, but I just thought the way he wrote was so clever. Just a very clever writer, and he's funny. Like he'd make me laugh. More recently, pretty much all I read is like Catholic literature. Jacques Philippe's Searching for and Maintaining Peace is probably up there as like, and I don't even know if you'd go so far as to call it a book. I mean, I guess it's
more like a pamphlet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 110 pages, I think.
Strongly recommend if you haven't read it.
Yeah, but it takes a bit to read just because it's so dense.
It's like this beer. I mean, it's just packed.
Yeah, it's like, well, and it's almost like every time you open it, like I think I've read that book 3 or 4 times, and every time I read it, there's some new aha moment that I didn't catch the first time, or maybe it just wasn't applicable to me then and it is now. I don't know. But you read it and just like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like I would have to like put it down and like chew on, like, and it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph or whatever. It's like, did I really read what I think I just thought I read, and am I perceiving this correctly? And yeah, I'm the same way. I highly recommend anyone that hasn't read that book, and I would recommend it to Catholics and non-Catholics alike. It doesn't matter. Like that book is just very profound.
Did it make your ears tingly and warm? You mentioned it was like the beer.
It did.
You know?
Have you ever seen Fear?
No, it made my heart tingle more.
Have you seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
No.
Yeah, don't watch it. Okay.
Okay, I won't watch that.
That's Hunter S.
Have you
Thompson.
seen it?
I tried.
Ah, it's horrible. I mean, but there's like moments where they're tripping on acid or something, and the carpet's moving. You know, it's just kind of the strange. So I'm wondering. I'm not sure which level.
No, I'm not there.
You're
I'm
at.
not.
Okay.
I feel good.
It is. I mean, we didn't have very much. So.
No, so it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm reading Jacques
That's another
Philippe's,
good one.
Yeah, the 8 Doors to the Kingdom of the Kingdom. Phenomenal book. Like I think this is my third, and I think I started reading them because you were. So it's funny because when we first met, I was reading 3 to 5 books at any given time. I would have that many, and Thad's like, "You're such a dork, man."
I never said that.
Not verbatim, but there were expletives involved. And I don't know, was it 2 or 3 years? And we kept, and you're like, how many you read now? Which ones are they? Because I would read some fiction, I would do like a prayer thing, and then I would do something spiritual just for spiritual growth. And he just mocked me and mocked me and mocked me. And what was it, 2 years ago? All of a sudden, Thad's like, Jonathan, I gotta admit, I'm reading multiple books at once. Like he just told me he robbed a bank or something, and I'm like, "What? I didn't know you could read. I mean, beyond comics, I
did have my tail between my legs when I told you that.
You did, and you should have. And now you're like hooked. How many books are you reading currently?
Right now I'm reading 2, but they're both. There's an excerpt for every day in it. So I'm reading. I have this Mother Teresa book that's got one of her quotes for every day of the year. Which, some of them it's one sentence.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading Sister Miriam Heidland's, what's the name of it? It's for Lent. And
is it purple? Is it a purple book?
Yep. Yeah, purple and black.
I did that last year.
Restore? Is it Restore?
Yeah, I think it is Restore. And it's like a daily reflection. And
yeah, like the first page is like her write-up, and then the second page is like, think about it, and there's like room to journal or whatever. So I did that last year for Lent, and I'm doing it again. I'm a big, as you know, Sister Miriam fan. Like she's amazing to me. Her like the gift that God has given her in terms of how she can like speak to people, even just via a video. Listening to her speak, it's just like I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. Just what she says and how she says it, and her relationship with God and how that comes through, and her story and. Yeah, I think she's great.
I think that's because, and that's the reason we started this podcast, 'cause she's ordinary. She's normal.
Yeah.
But there's nothing about her. You're like, oh, she's a rock star. You're like, nope, she's just a woman who played collegiate sports and like decided, kind of like you. Even I remember watching one of her videos where she said, I think she was a nun before she had a real deep conversion and like actually started to love Jesus. And I'm like, that's real. That's what most of our stories are. Like you're saying I was, I guess at the time, 47, 2 years ago, when you're like, I actually put it into practice and started hearing God speak to me. And I started going to adoration and all these things. Like that's a real story. So I think that's what's so appealing about her story and listening to her on an ongoing basis is like, she's just normal.
Yeah.
I think I personally get so tired of like hearing about the saints. They floated and bilocated. Yeah, they were a bunch of sinners.
Yeah.
Like, so we hear the canned version of their story, but if you actually read into their stories, like I'm reading one every night to my kids when I put them to bed, and it tells the stories of like young saints. And it's interesting because it shows like their struggles and the thing that they're remembered for. I'm like, it's great that they show their struggles because the little two, they're 10 and 11, and they get to hear like, oh, they weren't perfect.
Yeah,
they're just another 10 to 12-year-old kid who struggled with vanity or with lying to their parents or whatever. And my kids hear that and they're like, oh, and they're a saint. I'm like, good. That's what reality is.
Yep. Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead.
I just was going to say, I think that they just embraced the idea that God loved them where they were, right? I think there's a lot of saints that didn't do a whole lot, but they rested with the Father.
Yeah.
Which is ironically part of Sister Miriam's message. Like that's what she's like, God wants to meet you where you are.
Bloom where you're planted, Father Meisenberg used to always say.
Yeah. Like we don't pop out of the womb with halos above our heads. You know, like none of us do. None of us. And as life goes on, it probably just gets worse before it gets better. You know, and hearing that message and knowing that like, yeah, I don't have to be perfect to like, you know, the interesting thing about like you saying with her story and then somewhat similar to what I shared, the thing that just dawned on me is like, you know, talking about Jesus, God being so gentle with us. It only started when I asked. Like it took me asking.
He's a gentleman.
Yeah, it was never this like, hey, come on, like get over here, like this is where you need to be. It took me asking. Then that started it. And she said the same thing. She she was a full-blown addict by the time she was 18. She started I think spiritual direction with this priest. And she never says who he is. I would love to know who he is.
She works with Bob Schutz, though. That's her big. That's a bucket list thing for you, I think. Maybe getting down in Florida, right? They're in Florida with the St. John Paul II Healing Center.
No, I for him or her.
So I think she's there with him. Maybe she's not.
No, I think her. I don't know. She's in Texas.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
She's in Texas.
Okay.
South Texas.
So I just talked to a lady who was going down to Florida to see Bob Schutz, he wrote Be Healed, which is an amazing book. But she was going to be down there, and I wonder if it was part of a retreat that she was coming in for because she was going to see Sister. She was really excited about Sister Miriam.
She works closely with him.
Yeah, I wonder if they were doing something
together.
Yeah. Okay.
She actually, when I first heard of Sister Miriam, a group of guys that you and I know, someone posted this video of hers and I watched it and I was like, this is incredible. Like, she is incredible. And I mentioned it to the guy who posted the video and he said, oh, she's going to be at North American Martyrs next weekend.
Whoa.
And I'm like, I felt like literally had the same feeling of being 19 years old and buying this record and be like, this band is amazing. And someone's like,
Did you have a Sister Miriam shirt on? Yay, Sister Miriam!
Like buying the record and be like, oh, that band's playing tomorrow night in town. It was like that. And so she did this 3-day retreat, in the evening at North American Martyrs. And I went, and I'm not big on regret, like to say like, oh, my life's regrets, although we do all have them, whether you want to admit it or not. But one of mine is, I never went up and met her. Like after every night, she was just standing in the back of church and people would just go up and talk. I mean, it wasn't like she had no rock star flair to her at all. None. Like, she was just someone that happened to be there to get up and talked and touch every single person's heart in the church. But when it was all said and done, like, anyone could approach her. And I remember the first 2 nights I was like kind of emotional. I'm like, I can't go talk to her. And then the third night, the last day, she was standing there talking to Father Kokali, and I was like, man, you're in, like, Kokali, and like, go up. Yeah. And I just kept on walking, and I just, to this day, I'm like, what were you thinking?
I had a similar experience with Father Carlos Martins. You know him at all?
Mm-mm.
He's an exorcist on YouTube. And anyway,
Oh, I do. Yes.
Do you know
Yeah.
him?
Yeah. Yeah.
well, he was over at St. Michael's. They did the St. Jude Thaddeus relic, which was a arm bone relic that traveled. Anyway, it was funny because I saw him, and he was part of this touring thing, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's Father Carlos Martins. And I don't know if any other, my wife didn't know who I was talking about, but hey, Father Carlos. I'm like, hey, Father Carlos Martins. Like, he knows me. Like, I've watched enough of his videos that he knows me. And he's like, hey, how you doing? Like, he was very turned off.
Here comes another possessed one.
Yeah, so he was
Get me
immediately
holy
like,
water.
get down. Security drugged me out of there. It was really embarrassing, but we lived through that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Books. Thomas Merton. I like Thomas Merton too. Seven Story Mountain is a great book. The one thing I'll say about both Jacques Philippe and Thomas Merton, message aside, which like that's really the key point with them, but they're both just such good writers. Just the way that they write, it's really, Thomas Merton to me was, he is a controversial figure, but kind of like the Saints, like, I think the people that appreciate him, that's what they're drawn to, is he wasn't this squeaky clean. He had a past, and even as a monk, did some things he shouldn't have done, but also made them public. And you like see the human struggle through this guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't untouchable. I think a lot of times we conjure up in our head that about people that we perceive as holier than thou. It's like they're untouchable. Like, I'll never be that good, so why would I even try? And you saw the human frailty in Thomas Merton.
I think you can see he really sought out the truth too. Like, that's what he would just pivot based on where he thought the truth was. And I think Father Robert Barron's a really big advocate for him too. So yeah, recommend him. Yeah.
Last great book I really read was Severe Mercy. Did you read that? Sheldon Van Auken. Story. So it's an autobiographical true story, but it's about this guy Sheldon Van Auken in the early 1900s meets a girl, falls in love. They're both pagan, no religion whatsoever, and they scoff at religion. Through a course of events, she ends up converting to Christianity, and he's kind of left scratching his head, like, what is she? Like, they were academics, and so he's like, what are you thinking? He eventually then does too, and in the process of discerning conversion, legitimately starts sending C.S. Lewis letters, because he's like, well, I know C.S. Lewis is big on this stuff. I hear him on the radio. I'm going to send him letters, and they develop this friendship that like first started with mail, talking back and forth just via mail, and then they would meet in person. And this isn't a spoiler because he divulges this from the very beginning of the book. She ends up getting really sick and dying. And really the gist of the story is that we can literally make anything more important than God. And they had made their relationship more important than God. It's like you read it and you're like, oh, it's so romantic. They do everything together. Like, that was their whole thing. They had this concept of togetherness. And it's like, if you're reading a book, I'll read the same book, even if I don't like it. But so we need to experience those same things, because if you're reading it, there's obviously something good about it. So I want to experience the same thing. And it starts out kind of in that vein, but then that was the conclusion of like, really at the end of the day, the most important thing is our relationship with God, not our relationship. That comes second. So Peter Kreeft, do you know who that is?
Jesus Shock. Huh? Jesus Shock, right?
Yeah, he's that professor. He's got this running tally he's a huge proponent of this book. He has this running tally of people that have read A Severe Mercy. At some point during the book, did you weep? Not just shed a tear, not kind of cry, but did you weep? And last time I heard, it was 49 out of 50 people he asked said yes. And I will say I was one of them. Like, the part where she dies, you're just like, oh my God, like, it kills you. And like, I'm going to get choked up now. I was upstairs reading it when it happened, and Amy knew I was reading it, and I came downstairs and there's like tears streaming down my face, and I'm like, she died. And it was like the next day I started thinking, it was like, you have dogs?
Yeah.
Like,
we have one dog, yeah.
Yeah, you not feeling when your dog dies? It was that. Like, the next day you're like, oh my God, she died.
Oh man.
I highly recommend the book. I don't think it's for everyone, because I talked Amy into reading it, and she got about halfway through, and she's like, I can't read this anymore. Like, just his style of writing, she couldn't get past. He kind of writes kind of in the vein of C.S. Lewis, which he's kind of the same for me. Like, I love C.S. Lewis, but you got to get over the hump of his style to really get to the gist of what he's writing about.
When you talked about C.S. Lewis and responded to that guy with his letters, and I think Pints with Aquinas talks about that. Matt Fradd talked about how C.S. Lewis would try to respond to every letter that somebody wrote, because when he wrote a book, it was like starting a conversation.
Yeah.
And so he would try to keep that conversation going. So I thought that was really amazing.
That's great. Like, how much time would one have to spend? I mean, especially with someone with the pedigree of C.S. Lewis, you know?
Yeah, right. That's funny, because I don't know if it's the same interview, but Matt Fradd said, like, I don't even look at comments on my YouTube channel. He said, I used to look at them, and they're just worthless. And he's like, no, I mean, it's nice that you shared those things, but I'm not going to read any of it.
Yeah.
It's ironic that he would say
so
that.
many.
But I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think in this day and age with the internet, well, I mean, I'm just speaking the obvious, but like the amount of garbage, like why even subject yourself to it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, it's irrelevant. So anyway.
All right, so we're in the barn. There is a tradition we have. Did you happen to bring that? Okay, so we've got a basket.
I forgot to set them out.
That's all right. No, it's all good. This is live. Actually, it's not live. We got a basket of eggs. They're farm fresh eggs. Mike's getting them out of the fridge. You're not supposed to put farm fresh eggs in the fridge. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We don't. But
okay. But those were in the fridge.
they might feel cold.
So what we're going to have you do, this is a staple here on Barn Again, is you're going to pick an egg and tell us the number on the bottom, and then we're going to ask a corresponding question.
6.
That was, I think, Matt picked 6.
Should I pick a different one?
No, you picked it.
No.
You got to live with it. All right, number 6. All right, so here's a question for you. If you could have a magical superpower, would you rather fly, but only with your eyes closed, or be invisible, but when you are, you can't see? And why?
Oh man, my kids ask me questions like this all the time.
Well,
so
kinda
fly
like
and you can't see.
Fly, but you can't see, or invisible. No, wait. No. Fly, but yeah, your eyes are closed, or invisible, but you can't see.
In both cases, you can't see.
Yeah, pretty much.
Invisible, but I can't see.
And why?
Well, how are you going to get anywhere flying if you can't see where you're going? Like, if you can't navigate it, what's the point? Whereas, like, oh crap, there's somebody I don't want to see. I don't care if clearly I want my eyes closed, and now they can't see me either.
So it's avoidance.
Yes.
What if if you could fly and you could just go up into the atmosphere and just fly for
But you're not seeing anything.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Like, you're just getting cold.
It's kind of like falling off the barn.
Have you done that?
Not that we know.
We'll see
What happens in the barn stays in the barn.
After that beer, we'll see what happens. I worked out earlier and I got in a cold plunge. Have you ever done one of those?
Not my whole body.
It's the opposite of a hot tub. And I found out today it's like 46 or 48 degrees. I assumed it was 33 because it's so freaking cold. But I got in there, and like at first I have to breathe really deep because it takes my breath away. And the first time I did it, I was only 10 seconds, and I jumped out and jumped in the hot tub. And today I did it for 4 minutes straight. I stayed in the cold.
Wow.
Plunge. Yeah. It's like my buddy told me, he said it's a mental thing. But then I talked to a physical therapist who's a buddy of mine, and he said, no, there's actually science behind it. Like after a workout, when you get in the cold plunge, it forces all the blood to your essential organs because your body's kind of panicking. And so it takes all that blood that's got the junk in your body and it forces it all back into your kidneys and all the things that are purifying. And then when it goes into shock and eventually you get out, then it sends fresh blood out to your body. That's why it's healthy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I was like, that's really cool.
There's a lot of like aging skateboarders that, like professional skateboarders that swear by them. That like they get done skating for the day, especially like street skaters when you're like jumping off handrails and steps and stuff. That cold plunge. I've done it with like my foot. If I had like an injured foot or something, I've done it. And even that, it's like it's excruciating. You know, like you put it in, like your knee jerk react. No pun intended. It's like pull it out of there. Like that's cold, but once you get past the shock of it, it works. You know, it's just the initial shock is. You did the whole body, like up to your neck?
Up to my neck.
Oh
yeah,
man.
For 4 minutes, and then I jumped out and immediately got in the hot tub. And it's my appendages, my fingers and my toes start to like they're on fire. It's not a great feeling. Like I kept my hands out of the hot tub. People are probably looking at me like, "What is he doing?" I'm like, "It hurts." Wow. But it's so worth it.
It hurts so good.
Well, Thad, where can people find information about the Boiler, about you, if they have questions or anything like that?
Social media. So Facebook is Boiler Brewing Company, Instagram, Boiler Brewing Company. Yeah, I manage all that stuff. So any messages that get sent via those platforms. Same with Google. Or we have 2 locations. Both have Google pages. So any communication through there, I get. Yeah.
So if they want to try that beer, one, they'd have to probably sign up for the Boiler Society. Can you do that online? You can become a Boiler member?
It's full. It's full every year, but we always have a wait list.
Okay.
And so online, there's a wait list that people can sign up for. So again, this beer, if people wanted to try it, you can come to either location and get a bottle, but you just have to drink it in the tap room.
It's definitely worth it. I would recommend it. Or you can come to the barn. We have. Well, we won't have any leftovers. So.
I was just going to say I'm ready for another one.
Have at it.
Well, one thing Jonathan and I were talking about right before we started recording was just encouraging people to find their tribe. We talked about this is kind of an extension of our coffee group that we have, and Thad's a part of that. And so, I mean, honestly, this would have been a conversation we had over coffee without any cameras or anything. This would have, pretty much identical. And so this is kind of what we do and it's just a regular kind of a, routine that we have. But we would encourage you to reach out and find those people that maybe you could reach out to and have coffee with. And that along with that was trying to find people and just be open to hearing some stories, because everybody's got a story. You were talking about, I think, some lady you were checking, at the grocery store or something, you were checking out. And so we encourage you to kind of do that too, just to be open to that and be ready to hear people's stories, because everybody's got a story. That is amazing. Super cool stuff that you're doing. And I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about how you got into the brewery aspect of things, but maybe for the second visit.
Sure. That was a serendip. That was true. Everything's an act of God, but that, beyond a shadow of a doubt, was the timing of when it happened. But that's a story for a later date. But one quick thing to continue on what you just said. I think that whole finding your tribe thing, especially for men, I think is really critical, because I think men are more likely not to step out of their comfort zone to find those things. And I know from my own experience, leading up until maybe 8 years ago, my tribe, if that's, that's what you want to call it, it was people, it was friends, people that just had the same interests as me. So it's people I would go ride bikes with, or people that I would go see live music with, or whatever. And there's nothing, I'm not judging that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But my experience was that's where those relationships sort of began and ended, was, so if we are not talking about bikes, what do we talk about? If I'm talking Amy and I are in an argument, I'm not talking to them about it, because it just doesn't apply. And so to have a group of people that you don't have things in common with them, you learn things, you learn things about different perspectives, and our coffee group, it's a diverse group of guys, there's no one, other than, and not everyone's even Catholic, I guess, now that I think about it, that, you learn different perspectives just beyond we're both passionate about this hobby. You know what I mean? So,
well, yeah, even you and I, when we became friends several years ago, we had some things in common. We both like music, but then I remember being very intentional about, I think you had asked me to go bike riding, and I didn't even have a mountain bike. And I'm I'll get a mountain bike, because I want to do something with you. It wasn't just talking heads, let's go out for coffee. That's good. But then I got another buddy that we walk around the local Holmes Lake. That's just a thing we do to get out and do something together. So you find those common interests. But I think faith has been maybe that core.
Yeah.
There's a God element.
Yeah. And then from there it grows. You find other things. Some of the guys, I grew up, my dad was military, and some of the guys in our coffee group are in or were in the military. And so we've got some of those connections. But I think instead of the thing being our connection, God became the connection. And then we found things that were also in connection. And that's what I think makes it a tribe. And I think so many men are we become isolated. We get busy in our work or our families or whatever, and we just don't have guys that we can go to and share vulnerably and intimately.
That's the word that I think that when you've got, maybe it's not completely necessary, I don't know, but when you have the God element or the faith element, it lends itself to being vulnerable. You know, because in this day and age, people shy away from talking about God or their relationship with God or religion, or it's like, that's the thing for Sunday morning for 1 hour. And then above that, we're not going to talk about it. And when you can be comfortable enough around other men to not only speak about those things, you can be more vulnerable with whatever, as opposed to like I said before, when you've got relationships that are only really circling around a shared hobby or a shared passion. There's not a whole lot of vulnerability there. And again, I'm not criticizing that. There's a time and a place for all of that, but those relationships I found for me, they just only went so far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know I spent the last however long talking all about myself, but I've evaluated my life that when I was younger, I thought that I had a whole lot of friends. In reality, I had a lot of people I knew that I'd see at a party, I'd see at a bar or whatever, and I could go up and talk to them because of that shared interest in whatever. The older I get, I realize I don't have that many friends, but the ones that I have are very, very, very important to me. And I want to keep those relationships and I want to foster them. And that could be 2 or 3 guys. And that's okay. You know, I don't have to be friends with the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that like finding, to your point, finding that tribe, especially for men, of just people that you feel like you can be vulnerable with and talk about things that are on your heart. Because I don't care how macho you are, everyone's got their things.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's got their thing they got to get off their chest. And my experience has been the longer you hold that inside, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah.
Well, and for us, I think with the coffee group, it started with 2 guys who were willing to be vulnerable, that just said to a third guy, hey, do you want to come? We're just going to be honest here and share whatever. It's our joys, our struggles, whatever it is. And from that, it's just grown into this very large group of guys. It's become our tribe.
Yep. Yeah. It's really, very rewarding. Like when you go, I always feel like when I leave, like somehow a weight has been lifted off of me. I feel like lighter. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know why or what that even means, but I know that I'm like, I've never once said I shouldn't have gone today.
Yeah.
You know, I've never felt that way.
Yeah.
So.
You're not struggling alone. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you just hear a lot of stories and you're carrying something, so you can kind of relate. And,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Thad. I
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having.
Thad.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right, we'll see you next time, you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Where'd your silly tagline go?
That was on the teaser. Ah, dang it. Yeah.
Welcome back to the barn again. My name is Jonathan Little,
And I'm Mike Says.
and we are here to share. Well, we're going to start over because I saw what you did. That's all.
Do you want me to do that or not?
No, we'll introduce you. You good? So I had to adjust
Just got like,
ever so slightly.
Ooh, I got a cramp.
It's good stuff.
I'd like to offer you a hug, but I feel like we kind of already are.
we already can't get much closer than this.
Not on camera anyway. On the barn again. Just can't wait to get on the barn again. What about yourself?
We're really close.
What?
We're really close.
Is it my breath? Is it the
No,
tooth?
it's the tooth.
I see what you were saying about baby diaper.
The whole video will be over like this.
The tooth of shame.